Good morning, class. I just wanted to throw out a short lecture here for you all. We're talking about chapter 12. I'm really looking forward to moving on to the next text. I think you all will really enjoy it. I think it's a little bit more simplified, not to say Yalom, like I mentioned before. Yalom is amazing at what he does and what he's done in group, as you've seen in some of the videos that have been posted. Um, I've gotten through all your papers and your group demonstrations, and you all did wonderfully. Very impressed. I really was impressed, actually, by your demonstrations, by your some of the techniques you all use. It was really, really impressive. So, thank you so much for just taking this so seriously and um, just being great students. I really do appreciate it. Also, someone had brought up a couple questions about the capstone, and I know, not to say that you're not used to capstones, but that's not pretty typical of main campus students. And so, at least I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't taught on main campus in a while, but I normally teach just exclusively online. But so the capstone is not another live demonstration. It is almost like a treatment plan for groups. So you're going to be outlining what you would do in a group, like for something like anxiety group, like what would you do each week in group? It's almost like a treatment plan for that group. So, yeah, so that's part of your capstone. So you don't need to record another video. It's not another live demonstration. It's just an outline of what you would do each week. It doesn't need to be like pages and pages long of each week, but it's like an outline. And usually the rubrics in the it should be in week. So for you, the last week of class, the rubric is pretty clear, pretty outlined. If there's questions about whatever you're reading, please let me know, because there was a lot of modifying that had to happen in order for me to switch everything over from in person to virtual. And so if there could be some errors, and I apologize if there has been, but just let me know and I'll try to answer your questions as best as I can. Sorry for the confusion about discussion board this week. There is no discussion board this week. I accidentally got it mixed up in the syllabus. Next week, there's a discussion board. And then the following week, I believe, is your spring break. So there is no discussion. I have no work for you guys that week. So you have the week off. So it won't be a live lecture that week. There won't be discussion board that week. You'll just get to rest and enjoy a spring break, which is so very nice because online students don't get a wheel break in between sessions. We just move right along. So anyway, still talking about difficult group members, the monopolists. We all know those people, the people that just dominate conversation, who talk too much, who have so much input. It can be kind of overwhelming, a little frustrating. And so what I want you to be mindful of is these are things that we kind of have to kind of nip it in the bud from the beginning. These people tend to like just always have input, and they always can relate to everybody. And they just take over, and it can be majorly problematic, and kind of shut other people down, which is not the purpose that we're going for here. So we want to make sure that we're aware of these people, that we address those things. There's this correction here, which I think is kind of funny. So they're talking about it might feel forceful to kind of be this direct, but the example here is Charlotte. I think it'd be best now for you to stop speaking because I sense there are some important feelings about you in the group that would be very helpful for you to know. You should also help the members disclose their responses to Charlotte rather than their interpretations of their motives. So it's like we want to be direct, but it's not like we want to be direct in such a way where we're not interpreting things, but we're actually addressing what's actually happening. And so, you know, we don't want to confuse or interchange the concepts of cause, interpersonal manifestations, and response. So interpersonal manifestations are things that we've derived up in our own head, right? The cause of monopolistic behavior may vary considerably from client to client. Some individuals speak in order to control others. Some so fear being influenced or penetrated by others that they completely defend each of their statements, and some so overvalue their own ideas and observations that they cannot delay, and all thoughts must be immediately expressed. Still others simply desperate for the group's attention. Generally, the cause of actual intent of the monopolist's behavior is not well understood until much later in therapy. An interpretation of the cause may offer little help in the early management of disruptive behavior patterns. It is far more effective to concentrate on the client's manifestation of self in the group and on the other members' responses to his or her behaviors. Members must be confronted gently but repeatedly with the paradox that however much they may wish to be accepted and respected by others, they persist in behavior that generates only irritation, rejection, and frustration. So what they're looking to gain is in a sense what they're repelling. So they're wanting this acceptance, they're wanting this validation, they're wanting to feel important, they're wanting to feel heard, all these things, and they're doing it in such a way it's repulsive. Like, we know people like this. Like, I have family like this. It's obnoxious. Even though I know in their hearts they're well-intended. I don't mean to sound like I don't like my family. Even though they're well-intended, it's just the way they do it, it just puts you off, and I know you all probably know people like that. And so it's trying to correct them in such a way where they realize what they're trying to gain, they're actually not gaining, because they're turning everyone off. Then you have the opposite, the person that doesn't say anything. And oftentimes that person could seem, they could seem like they don't have anything wrong. Like, group members can interpret silence in a lot of different ways, not usually good ways. There's much clinical consensus that silent members do not profit from the group. Group members who self-disclose very slowly may never catch up to the rest of the group, and at best achieve only minimal gains. The greater the verbal participation, the greater the sense of involvement, and the more the clients are valued by others and ultimately by themselves. Self-disclosure is not the only essential to the development of group cohesion. It is directly correlated to positive therapeutic outcome, as is the client's work in therapy. So again, if they're taking too long to kind of invest, what they're going to get out of it is going to be minimal, and that's not good. And that's not what we want for our clients, right? So we want them to participate. Some of you mentioned even in your demonstrations, like, you had to pull people out of their shells, and I really did appreciate that in some of your demonstrations, how some of you really called on people, and I liked that, because you forced them to speak, you forced them to kind of participate. You're like, oh, you haven't said anything, what do you have to say? And sometimes people need that. Like, maybe they're embarrassed, they're shy, they don't feel like they have anything to offer the group, and so they're intimidated to speak, and so you're giving them the power to do so. And I think that's really important. So I really liked that in your demonstrations. So the boring client, poor boring clients. Boredom is a highly individualized experience, right? So it's kind of personal. My 4-year-old says everything's boring, which I'm like, you just like a lot of intensity. The inability to read their own emotional cues also make these individuals vulnerable to medical and psychosomatic illness. Group therapy, because of its ability to increase emotional awareness and expression, can reduce and has been shown to improve medical outcomes, for example, in heart disease. Effective group therapy with this population, the boring population, is marked by slow, deliberate expansion of the client's emotional world rather than a sudden transformative breakthrough. So it's gradual. And I think that's where, as a leader, we have to be patient with our clients. We have to take our time. We have to be okay, like, it may not be this tearful, oh my gosh, this was life-changing experience. It may be gradual. And you know what? We don't need that validation. That's not what our job is. Like, yes, it's nice to have validation, but we don't need that validation. Our clients need this experience to move forward. So it's just hopeful that, we can work on these things and really try to develop moving forward how we want to handle, clients who are talking too much, clients who aren't talking at all, clients who aren't really they're kind of from inside out. It's like we have to address feelings, like let's get them out of their shell. Like, we can see these things happen. We don't need these gigantic emotional experiences for us to feel good as clinicians. We can watch the gradual things happen and feel good about what we see, the growth we see. For example, this has nothing to do with group, but it was really impactful for me. I at my church, I do check-in for the kids. So I watch this mom come every week with her kids, and she ends up walking back with a couple of them, and they're really they like totally disrupt her while she's in church, because I end up kind of sitting by her in church. And the other day she got all three of her kids in, and she was so happy. It was the first time in a year she got all her kids in Sunday school, and she ran off like so happy. She was like, my first time in a year, I get to go to church without my kids. Like, she was just so happy. And I had been watching this week by week, because I'm out there every morning. I get to see the same things. And I just was so pleased for her. I was so happy for her that she was able to get her kids in, and I've been able to, like, even made me kind of tear up, because I was like, what a relief for her. And I didn't have to have a conversation with her. I don't know her. I don't even know her story. I just have gotten to watch this gradual progression. So, we don't need like some gigantic outcome or anything, but it's just so cool and encouraging to see like things happen over time. And so to not be discouraged when you're not seeing these big moments, but to see all the moments put together and to know you're part of that and you're part of that journey is really, really great. The rejecting complainer, we all probably know some of these. These clients may best be understood through an attachment paradigm. The rejection complainer experiences two forms of attachment insecurity at the same time. The first form is the individuals who are anxiously attached, who seek closeness and reassurance, often exaggerating their distress to ensure that their caregivers will respond to them. So looking again for validation. The second form is the avoidant dismissive attached individual who resists rejection and care. So it's like this push-pull. They're difficult, challenging clients. Many such clients have won victory over the therapist, and they fail in therapy. This is a loss for all. Any chance at successful treatment is predicted upon the group leader understanding simultaneously with the client, and their care and the dread of that care being unreliable, hurtful, and destructive. So trying to be reassuring, and then patiently building a relationship. So there's a lot of dynamics, as you can see, that could be happening in one group. A lot of history, a lot of pain. And so just making sure that we're observing each individual, even though we're working as a group. It's a challenge. And not hopefully all these people would be in your group at once. Otherwise, that sounds like it'd be a nightmare. But knowing that if this happens, if I have one of these identified people, I can do this. I can work with them. I need to see what else is going on to maybe target them a little bit better so we can get a better outcome. Okay, class, I'm going to let you guys go. Talk to you next week.